Oh, snap.
Oh, just
Yeah,
pull,
yeah,
just
there's no
pull
good.
it.
It's like a Honda Civic.
He's like a kid at Christmas in that.
Drive it when it was split in half, remember?
Yeah, and he crushed it again then.
The automotive world has seen many wild rebuilds over the years, but very few stories have created as much attention as the rebuild of FXAlexG's crashed Bugatti Chiron. The car was once considered almost impossible to repair after its heavy crash, and many people believe it would never return to the road again. A Bugatti Chiron is not a normal supercar. It is one of the most expensive and most advanced hypercars ever made. Every part inside the vehicle is engineered with extreme precision. Even small repairs usually cost huge amounts of money. Because of that, when the Chiron crashed, most people expected the car to be written off forever. But then Mat Armstrong stepped into the story. Known for rebuilding damaged exotic cars that many people think cannot be fixed, Mat took on a challenge that even experienced professionals were afraid to attempt. What followed became one of the most talked about automotive rebuild projects on YouTube. The rebuild itself was already dramatic, but the real emotional moment arrived when FXAlexG finally drove the rebuilt Chiron for the first time after the accident. That moment turned into something far bigger than just a test drive. It became a story about fear, trust, pressure, and proving doubters wrong. For Mat Armstrong, this was not just another project. Throughout his career, he had rebuilt many expensive cars, but this Bugatti was different. The Chiron represented an entirely different level of engineering and responsibility. Bugatti vehicles are known for their complicated systems, expensive parts, and strict repair processes. Even getting official parts can be difficult unless repairs are done through approved Bugatti channels. During the rebuild process, many people questioned whether the car could ever be safely repaired outside the factory system. Some critics believed the project was dangerous from the beginning. Others believed the car would never perform correctly again. Yet Mat and his team continued working through problem after problem. They fabricated missing parts, repaired damaged sections by hand, and searched for creative engineering solutions when official support was unavailable. Months of work went into rebuilding the car from what looked like a hopeless wreck into a functioning machine once again. Every stage of the project carried pressure because one mistake could destroy the entire rebuild. But despite all the technical challenges, the hardest moment for Mat was still waiting ahead. That moment arrived when FXAlexG prepared to drive the rebuilt Chiron for the very first time since the crash. On the surface, it may have looked like a simple customer pickup, but emotionally it was far more serious. Mat openly admitted that he was nervous, and viewers could hear genuine fear in his voice. For the first time, somebody else would push a car that Mat rebuilt with his own hands. If anything failed during the drive, the consequences could be massive. Not only would the car be damaged again, but Mat's reputation could also be destroyed. This was no ordinary sports car either. The Bugatti Chiron produces an incredible amount of power and reaches speeds most cars could never dream of achieving. A small problem at high speed could quickly turn into disaster. That is why the tension surrounding the drive felt so real. Mat had already tested the car himself, but allowing the owner to fully experience the vehicle was different. It was similar to handing over years of hard work and hoping everything would perform perfectly under pressure. The emotional side of the story also made the moment more powerful. FXAlexG had not driven the Chiron since the crash that happened more than a year earlier. His last memory behind the wheel ended in disaster, and return to the same car again could easily create fear and anxiety. Mat even joked about possible PTSD from the accident, but behind the humor was a real truth. Crashes leave emotional scars, especially when they involve a vehicle as powerful and expensive as a Bugatti Chiron. Getting back inside that car again was not just a driving experience. It was also psychological. At the same time, the rebuild carried another layer of emotion because so many people had doubted the project from the beginning. Every successful moment during the drive became proof that the impossible rebuild was actually working. Each gear shift, each acceleration pull, and each smooth movement of the car represented months of effort finally paying off. The drive was no longer just about transportation. It became a public test of the entire rebuild itself. Another reason the story captured so much attention was because viewers were emotionally invested in the journey. Throughout the rebuild process, audiences watched the car get split apart, repaired, and slowly brought back to life. They saw damaged sections removed, custom parts created, and complicated engineering problems solved step by step. People became attached to the project because it represented determination against impossible odds. Many automotive fans enjoy watching rebuilds, but this project felt different because of the scale of the challenge. The Bugatti Chiron is one of the most advanced production cars ever made, and rebuilding one outside the factory system seemed almost unthinkable. That is why the first drive carried so much emotional weight. It was a moment where months of work would either succeed or fail publicly. If the car performed correctly, Mat Armstrong would prove that independent rebuilders could achieve things many thought impossible. If something went wrong, critics would instantly attack the project and claim they were right all along. As the day of the handover arrived, the atmosphere became intense. Mat tried to stay calm, but his nervous energy was obvious. The team joked around to reduce tension, yet everyone understood how important the moment was. When the W16 engine started roaring to life, it signaled more than just another test drive. It marked the beginning of the final proof that the rebuild had worked. Watching FXAlexG slowly pull away in the unfinished Chiron created one of the most emotional scenes of the entire project. The car still lacked some cosmetic parts, and the rebuild was not fully completed visually. But mechanically, it was alive again. Every second of that drive tested the craftsmanship, engineering, and trust built throughout the entire process. What happened next will become one of the most memorable moments in automotive YouTube history because it showed not only the power of the Bugatti Chiron, but also the emotional reality behind rebuilding a machine many believed could never return to the road again. Before the rebuilt Bugatti Chiron could become one of the biggest automotive comeback stories on YouTube, everything began with a devastating crash that shocked car fans across the internet. When news first spread that FXAlexG had crashed his Bugatti Chiron, many people immediately assumed the car's life was over. Hypercars like the Chiron are not ordinary vehicles that can simply be repaired at a local body shop. They are built using highly advanced engineering, custom carbon fiber structures, and extremely expensive components designed with almost unbelievable precision. Even small accidents on these cars can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to repair. This crash, however, was far from small. Images of the damaged Chiron quickly spread online, showing severe destruction across major sections of the car. The front end was heavily damaged. Structural parts were affected, and many people believed the vehicle would never drive again. Some viewers even described the car as a complete write-off. In the eyes of most automotive enthusiasts, the Chiron story had already ended the moment the crash happened. For FXAlexG, the accident was not only financially painful, but emotionally difficult as well. The Bugatti Chiron is more than just an expensive car. It represents status, passion, and years of achievement. Owning one places somebody inside a very small group of people in the world. Losing control of such a powerful machine and destroying it publicly creates massive attention and pressure. The internet quickly filled with reactions, criticism, jokes, and debates about whether the crash should have happened at all. Some people blamed reckless driving, while others focused only on the shocking sight of destroyed multi-million-dollar hypercar, sitting damaged on the roadside. But once the initial shock disappeared, another question started to appear everywhere online. Could the Chiron actually be repaired? Most people believed the answer was no. The complexity of Bugatti engineering seemed far beyond what independent rebuilders could realistically handle. Even experienced mechanics often avoid working on these cars because of how difficult and specialized they are. That is what made the story so interesting when Mat Armstrong became involved. Mat had already built a reputation online for buying crashed supercars and bringing them back to life. His audience enjoyed watching impossible-looking rebuilds slowly turn into running vehicles again. Over time, he had repaired Ferraris, Lamborghinis, McLarens, and many other expensive cars. But the Bugatti Chiron represented an entirely different level of challenge. This was not simply another damaged exotic vehicle. This was one of the world's most technically advanced hypercars. The Chiron contained systems and engineering solutions that most mechanics never even get to see in person. The car's structure, electronics, cooling systems, suspension setup, and drivetrain all operate at an extreme level of complexity. Many people doubted whether Mat truly understood how difficult the rebuild would become. Some critics believed he accepted the project mainly for views and attention, without fully understanding the risk involved. The rebuild became even more controversial once people realized Bugatti itself was not supporting the project. According to discussions surrounding the rebuild, official Bugatti parts and repair assistance were extremely difficult to obtain. This created one of the biggest obstacles for Mat and his team. Normally, manufacturers want damaged hypercars repaired through approved channels where every procedure follows factory standards. Independent rebuilders often face major difficulties gaining access to parts, repair instructions, and software systems. In this case, the situation appeared even more complicated because the Chiron's damage was so severe. Instead of giving up, Mat and his team decided to approach the rebuild differently. They began fabricating certain parts themselves, cross-referencing compatible Volkswagen Group components, and rebuilding damaged sections by hand. This decision became one of the most fascinating aspects of the entire story because viewers were watching a small independent team attempt something most large repair facilities would never dare to, or wide as the rebuild videos continued releasing online. The audience became more emotionally connected to the project. Each episode revealed new problems and new engineering challenges. Some sections of the car needed custom fabrication because replacement parts were unavailable. Other systems required creative thinking and experimentation to function again. Viewers watched the team remove destroyed pieces, repair structural damage, and slowly transform the crashed Chiron into something recognizable again. One of the most important figures in the rebuild process was Bob, whose fabrication and welding work became legendary among viewers following the series. Bob repaired damaged structural sections, recreated important components, and helped solve problems many people thought were impossible to fix. Without those fabrication skills, the rebuild may never have progressed beyond the early stages. Over time, the audience stopped seeing the Chiron as just another expensive car project. Instead, it became a symbol of determination and engineering creativity. At the same time, criticism of the rebuild never fully disappeared. Many people questioned whether the repaired car could ever truly be safe again. Others argued that rebuilding a crashed hypercar without factory support was irresponsible. Every new update video generated debates online between supporters and critics. Some viewers believed Mat Armstrong was proving that independent mechanics could achieve incredible results when given enough skill and determination. Others insisted the rebuild would eventually fail under real driving conditions. That constant debate actually helped the project gain even more attention because people wanted to see whether the impossible challenge would succeed or collapse publicly. Each successful repair increased the pressure because expectations kept growing. By the time the Chiron was finally running again, the rebuild had already become one of the biggest automotive stories on YouTube. What made the situation even more intense was the emotional pressure placed on Mat himself. Rebuilding your own car is already stressful, but rebuilding somebody else's multi-million-dollar Bugatti creates an entirely different level of responsibility. If something went wrong, the consequences would be enormous. Mat was not just repairing damaged metal. He was rebuilding trust, reputation, and one of the world's most expensive performance machines. Every decision mattered. Every fabricated part needed to work correctly. Every system had to function safely at high speed. The closer the project came to completion, the more pressure increased because eventually the car would need to be driven properly. It could no longer remain a garage project forever. At some point, somebody would have to get behind the wheel and push the rebuilt Chiron in real-world conditions. That moment will become the true test of whether all the months of work had actually succeeded. By the time FXAlexG prepared to drive the car again for the first time after the crash, the story had evolved far beyond a normal rebuild project. The audience was no longer just watching mechanics repair a damaged vehicle. They were watching a battle between doubt and determination. The crash had destroyed the Chiron physically, but the rebuild transformed it into something even more important emotionally. It became proof that passion, creativity, and persistence could challenge expectations many people accepted as impossible. Yet despite all the progress, one huge question still remained unanswered. Would the rebuilt Bugatti Chiron actually perform correctly once it returned to the road at speed? That question hung over everyone involved as the moment of truth slowly approached. Once the damaged Bugatti Chiron arrived at the workshop, the true scale of the challenge finally became clear. Pictures and videos online had already shown that the car was badly damaged, but seeing it in person revealed an entirely different reality. This was not a simple rebuild involving a few body panels and suspension parts. Large sections of the car were destroyed, structural areas were damaged, cooling systems were affected, and countless components needed attention. Even experienced mechanics watching the project online admitted that the rebuild looked nearly impossible. A Bugatti Chiron is engineered with extreme precision, and every part inside the car works together under enormous stress. The W16 engine alone is one of the most advanced power plants ever installed into a production vehicle. The cooling systems, aerodynamics, electronics, and structural components are all designed to handle unbelievable speeds and forces. Repairing such a machine outside the official Bugatti network seemed almost unrealistic. Yet despite the overwhelming difficulty, Mat Armstrong and his team committed themselves fully to the project. One of the biggest problems quickly became access to official parts. Normally, manufacturers like Bugatti prefer damaged cars to be repaired only through approved service centers using factory procedures. In the Chiron's case, getting official support appeared extremely difficult, especially for such a heavily damaged car. This forced Mat and his team to think differently. Instead of depending entirely on Bugatti, they began searching for alternative engineering solutions. Some components could be repaired by hand. Others needed to be recreated from scratch. Certain systems required parts cross-referenced from other Volkswagen Group vehicles because Bugatti itself belongs to the larger Volkswagen automotive family. This creative approach became one of the most fascinating parts of the rebuild because viewers watched ordinary workshop problem-solving applied to one of the world's most extraordinary hypercars. Every episode showed new obstacles that needed patience, skill, and creativity to overcome. The rebuild process also revealed how incredibly complicated the Bugatti Chiron truly is. Unlike known performance cars, the Chiron is built around advanced engineering systems that operate together under massive loads. The cooling setup alone is extremely complex because the car produces huge amounts of heat. Multiple radiators, pipes, pumps, and airflow systems work continuously to control temperatures while the car performs at high speed. During the crash, many of these systems were damaged. Repairing them became a huge challenge because even small mistakes could cause major problems later. The same issue existed with the suspension, electronics, and structural components. Each repair needed to be accurate because the Chiron was never designed to be repaired casually. Many viewers following the project began realizing why Bugatti repairs are so expensive. The engineering behind the car is on another level compared to normal vehicles. One of the heroes of the rebuild quickly became Bob, whose fabrication and welding skills impressed almost everyone watching the project. Throughout the series, Bob repaired damaged structural sections, fabricated replacement pieces, and recreated important parts that were either unavailable or impossible to obtain quickly. His work became especially important because some sections of the Chiron required precise reconstruction to restore structural integrity. Rebuilding a hypercar chassis is not like repairing a standard road car. The tolerances are tighter, the materials are more specialized, and the consequences of mistakes are far more serious. Bob's ability to recreate damaged sections by hand turned him into a fan favorite during the rebuild. Many viewers even joked that he deserved as much credit as the car itself because of how much impossible-looking work he completed. Without skilled fabrication, the rebuild likely would have stopped long before reaching completion. As progress continued, the audience became increasingly invested emotionally in the journey. Every successful repair felt like a major victory because the odds were so heavily stacked against the team. When damaged systems finally started working again, viewers celebrated alongside the builders. Moments such as hearing the engine start, seeing electronic systems come alive, or watching the car move under its own power became emotional highlights for the audience. The rebuild was no longer simply about fixing a car. It became a long story about persistence and determination. Each setback created tension, while each success created relief and excitement. This emotional structure helped the project grow massively online because people wanted to see whether the impossible challenge would actually succeed in the end. However, the pressure surrounding the rebuild also continued growing. Every time the team solved one problem, another challenge appeared waiting ahead. Some viewers criticized the project constantly, claiming the car would never be safe again. Others argued that rebuilding a Bugatti without official factory support was irresponsible. Certain critics believed the rebuild only existed for internet views and entertainment rather than proper engineering standards. These debates spread across automotive communities online and made the project even more famous. Instead of avoiding criticism, Matt often addressed it directly in videos, which kept audiences engaged. The rebuild slowly transformed into a battle between independent creativity and traditional automotive gatekeeping. Supporters believed Mat Armstrong was proving that talented mechanics and fabricators could achieve incredible results without relying completely on manufacturers. Critics believed the car would eventually fail once pushed hard under real conditions. One of the most impressive aspects of the rebuild was how the team adapted when factory solutions were unavailable. Instead of giving up whenever a part could not be sourced, they searched for alternatives. This required deep understanding of engineering systems and willingness to experiment carefully. Some components were rebuilt rather than replaced. Others were fabricated from scratch using damaged originals as references. Even airbags and structural sections required creative solutions. Watching these problems get solved step by step gave viewers a rare behind-the-scenes look into what real automotive rebuilding can involve at the highest level. The project showed that repairing hypercars is not only about replacing expensive parts. It also requires problem-solving, fabrication skills, patience, and confidence. As months passed, the Chiron slowly transformed from a wrecked shellback into a functioning hypercar. Seeing the car move again after such devastating damage felt almost unreal to many viewers who remembered the original crash footage. Yet despite all the progress, everyone understood that the real test still had not happened. Starting the engine inside a workshop is one thing. Driving the car properly at speed is something completely different. A Bugatti Chiron is built to operate under extreme performance conditions. The car produces incredible acceleration, enormous aerodynamic forces, and massive stress on mechanical systems. The rebuild would only truly prove itself once the Chiron returned to real roads and handled those pressures successfully. That looming test created constant tension during the final stages of the rebuild. Mat Armstrong openly admitted feeling nervous about the upcoming drive because so much responsibility rested on the car performing correctly. Every fabricated component, every repaired system, and every engineering decision would soon face real-world pressure. If the car failed publicly, critics would instantly attack the rebuild and claim they had been right all along. But if the Chiron performed successfully, the project would become proof that one of the world's most impossible rebuilds had actually worked. As the day of the first real drive approached, excitement and anxiety continued building for everyone involved. The audience knew they were about to witness the final and most important chapter of the entire rebuild story.